Howdy, of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Jurassic World. So, more than likely, a lot of Jurassic World movies would probably be a lot trending than actual Jurassic Park movies, which is kind of like saddening to think about, but it's just people just love the Jurassic World Chris Pratt movie series. And so, hence why I kind of jumped the gun and skipped most of the other Jurassic Park movies, even though a lot of them I do enjoy, to make it to Jurassic World. After rewatching this movie, I would actually say that this movie is actually a solid, good film. Surprisingly, there is that overuse of raptors for yet another film, because evidently people just love to use raptors so much in a film that they now have to have Chris Pratt train raptors. And also, we do have T-Rex in this film, which we can't not stop using. And plus, always T-Rex always knows what exact pose he has to use in every single one of these films, because he is just like a fiend like that. He's like, no. Like, every other one of these big action stars, they always get their one-liners and their cool catchphrases. I'm always going to give that pose. That's going to be my signature, and no one's going to take it away from me. And all the other dinosaurs are like, well, why can't I get a cool pose? And the T-Rex is like, well, be in more movies, and then you won't have that problem. So, the T-Rex has, like, the T-Rex is kind of a prima donna, to be brutally honest. But anyways, pushing on. This movie, I think, the reason why it probably does win me over is because of the massive scale that this movie has to be in. Where there seems to be just money just thrown away into this film. And that's the thing I think I like about it. How there is this big, gigantic theme park that actually looks like a theme park in this movie, where, like, Jurassic Park, like, I don't think it really legitimately looked like a theme park to me. It kind of looked like it was trying to be a theme park, but it just didn't have that look. Like, this one actually has that look of a theme park. And also, you can't ignore the fact that like, time has done several advancements to this park to make it look at some points a little bit cooler. And also, like, I like the fact that we end up having a hamster wheel for a vehicle for people to go around in this movie, whereas before they would just have those goofy looking cars that, in all honesty, just, like, man, do they look ugly, but then also, man, do they, like, I'm sure any number of person would have desperately bought the car and painted their car to look just like that Jurassic Park thing, so they could be like, yeah, look at me now. And, like, especially once people were to go into Jurassic World, they're like, hey, yeah, those Jeeps don't look like the normal cars that people are driving around in, but those Jeeps, though, they look pretty sweet. So anyways, really you could kind of tell through some of these scenes, like, especially when we have, like, the big dinosaurs, that, like, the CGI and the actual person doesn't quite match up. There's actually some spots where I think the whole, like, Chris Pratt leaping scene where he's leaping to get away from some car trying to crush him, you could kind of tell that, like, Chris Pratt was, like, put into that scene and just, like, could kind of but I had fun with this movie. Like, this movie was fun. Like, I like the fact that in this movie, like, the whole entire movie wasn't done in complete darkness. So that way they could avoid and kind of get away with some things. Where, like, this movie actually does stuff in the broad daylight, which I actually enjoyed that. Like, cause and plus, like, realistically, this movie like does have a quite a few just fun spots. Uh, Really, there's quite a bit of time where we have both Gray and we have both Gray and Zach that, yeah, they're in danger, but also like they're having a lot of fun during this as well. And so that's the thing that like I think in the original like Jurassic Park, like the kids were terrified the whole entire time, but it seems like these kids were actually having fun. And if anything, they were gonna be like, yeah, like this is gonna be the thing that I'm gonna remember from my whole entire life, and I'm gonna tell everybody this story, and no one's ever gonna believe it, but but I'll have this story to tell. So yeah, definitely a fun movie, but like also what comes after it is just like I would rather just have this movie be the last like Jurassic Park World movie I see, because I just if a lot of people just like the Jurassic World series, I'll probably have to go into it just forcibly because I know there's probably other Jurassic World movies coming after this. I know there's a bunch of animated or yeah, like Jurassic World animated movies that came out of this also. So if there's anything trending that comes after this, I guess I'm gonna forcibly go into it just for the views. Just for the views. But let's get into the coveted spoiler time. Um, it's not about the views. It's just about like, will I have fun watching the other ones? But I don't know. Maybe I'll feel differently about them. Like that's the cool thing about uh, waiting a fairly long time for watching a movie, because sometimes like some things will land differently, and I'll just be like, you know what? Probably if I would originally review this, it would have been garbage to me. But now I'm looking at it. You know what? Like, there's some crap that comes after this. So it's a good movie. It's a good movie now. It probably wouldn't have been a good movie when it came out, but it's a good movie now looking at the crap that's like there's so many bad movies out there now that like in retrospect a lot of movies become good because of crappy movies or horrible things that are just to be spewed out because people just need to make money right now. So, with that said, let's go and make some spoilers because I think it's that coveted time. So, yeah. So, if I haven't said it already, spoiler time, spoiler time, it's about the time you spoil this movie. So, in the very beginning of this film, we are to uh, we are to also have not only the stars of this movie be important, but also we are to have other dinosaurs be important. So eventually I will have to forcibly know the name of some of these dinosaurs because I think in the original Jurassic Park, I think it was simple enough to just kind of skate by and not have to know the dinosaurs' names, even though there would be like dinosaurs here and there or whatever. But like I didn't think I needed to know the dinosaurs' names, but like in this one, like the selling point is, hey, look at this dinosaur. Oh, that's great. So let's get into this. So in the very beginning of this movie, we have both Gray and Zach to be taken on a plane by and Karen and Scott, and so they are to ship these kids off to go with Claire to the Jurassic World because really Karen is wanting to have these kids go on this family adventure, and they assume, or Karen is to assume that this family adventure is to have Claire with the kids the entire time. But boy, will she be wrong. So both Gray and Zach are to go on to have a tour of the Jurassic World, but instead of being ushered through this with Claire, instead they are going with some British assistant of Claire's, which both Gray and Zach try to ditch because they hate her and because they find her annoying. Because really, Zach is hearing over the phone that all this girl cares about is her husband's bachelor party or something like that. And so Zach tries to take Gray and run off while this girl is not paying attention. Because really, like, Gray shouldn't be hearing about this girl's bachelor party anyways. So, but anyways, let's a little bit. So Claire is to have this new exhibit that is to be of this gene sliced dinosaur, meaning that they had to create a new genetic dinosaur because there is nothing left that is cool enough to show in this new exhibit. Meaning that, like, T-Rex just isn't cool anymore. So they have to come up with a Indominus Rex is the new dinosaur, is the new big pitch. And so Claire takes her boss, the guy that basically owns this whole thing, who had bought this whole thing from Hammond and just been like, yeah, like, I'm gonna put up my Jurassic Park, and like, I'm gonna take all this stuff from Hammond, even the guy who kind of gene sliced and put all these guys together, Dr. Henry Wu from the original Jurassic Park movie. I'm going to take him and have him make all my dinosaurs. And so Claire is going with Masrani to go to the new Indominus Rex exhibit. And it's kind of funny because eventually when Claire is to talk to Owen about the Indominus Rex, Owen kind of laughs at the name, and Claire is like, well, if anything, we had to come up with the most simplest name, because if we actually would have said what it actually is, everybody wouldn't have been able to pronounce it. And so, but anyways, so Claire is going with Masrani to go to this exhibit, and it seems that they start to notice that they had broken parts of the glass, and it seems that consistently they start to see like weird things that this dinosaur has done, this Rex has done. And so Masrani goes to tell Claire, well, you know what, I like what Owen has been doing with these raptors, how he's kind of like trained them and how he's been able to figure them out. And I think Owen should be coming into this exhibit and trying to see how we can best house this thing, how we can best try to figure this out, so that way we'll get the best bang out of our buck for this dinosaur, and how this dinosaur will never be able to get out, and so on and so forth. So Claire is like, oh, okay, I'll do whatever you say, as Claire has to forcibly go on this helicopter with Masrani, and he is to kind of do this helicopter ride where it's just kind of even the helicopter teacher is going off to the side and barfing. because of how like awful this guy is. But anyways, uh and also Mizrani is, and I'm hoping I'm even ballparkingly close to pronouncing that correctly. Mizrani is going to Claire and asking her like, well, hey, like, how do the people like the park? And Claire is like, well, like, it seems that 80% of people like are enjoying what's going on, based on based on our like surveys or whatever. And Ms. Ronnie's like, no, like have you asked anybody? Like he wants actual feedback from an actual person, not a piece of paper. And Claire doesn't know because all she cares about is data or digits or whatever. Uh, like she's a very much paperwork like person, and she doesn't know what things are actually like. Like I think more than likely she probably like sits behind a desk like most of the time, or she just kind of like shuffles people around when like they are to come through her spot and want to see like what the new attraction is. Because Claire in the very beginning of this is to not go and have both Zach and Gray on a tour. Claire goes and takes some Verizon wireless people to try and sell them on this park. And it seems that these Verizon wireless people are to fund one of the dinosaurs like enclosures. So Claire is to mention, it's like, well, like I guess that eventually we're just gonna have to call it the Verizon Wireless presents the Indomitable Rex, and or the Indominus Rex. And so we have one of her men, Laurie. It sounds like Larry, but it's like Lowery. Laurie. That sounds weird. So Laurie is to mention, while they're in this kind of like command center of this park, like he's to mention, it's like, man, like it's gonna get to the point where everybody's gonna have their hand in naming like a dinosaur. Eventually, it's gonna be like Pepsi Don or like Twizzlers Dawn or something or whatever it's gonna be. Like every like it's gonna get to the point where like certain companies are gonna sponsor certain dinosaurs, and they're gonna feel like they need to name certain dinosaurs. It's gonna get goofy. So, if anything, so Claire is to eventually go with Owen, um, or Claire is to eventually meet back up with Owen, and so Claire's being very professional about this and is like, and I'm also trying to like try to like condense this movie down. I know it's like 2 hours, so I'm gonna probably try to condense a lot of this down into what I think is the most important parts. But a lot of people might be like, oh, well, what about this scene? I thought this scene was really fun. And maybe not. Like, I actually thought uh, the Mosasaurus, or the Mosasaurus, the big fish dinosaur that jumps in the air and grabs the big fish thing. Like I thought that that was actually cool. And eventually, people like it. Kind of seemed like SeaWorld for a moment there, where people getting hit with the water, and then they got to be able to see like the underground kind of approach of the dinosaur. You can actually see him in the water eating the fish and kind of swimming around, like making that seem really cool. But also, probably a lot of people would probably be terrified because a lot of people would be remembering like Jaws or something like that, where it's just like, oh my god. But anyways, especially if they were right up there with this thing not being a CGI monster. But moving on. So So Claire is going, and I'm kind of all over the place with this review, so I apologize. Uh, but anyway, so Claire is making her way to Owen's place, and Claire is being very professional, like calling, I think Owen's last name is like Brady, like Owen Brady, I think. And so Claire is like calling him Mr. Brady, I think. It's Brody or Brady. I don't remember which one it is. It just says Owen in IMDb. So Owen is like, "Why are you calling me by my last name? Like, you know my first name. What is my first name?" And Claire is like, "Well, Owen." It's like, "Yeah, so what do you want?" And so Claire, like, mentions what she needs, and eventually Owen is just kind of, like, throwing shade in her way of, like, Owen was like, "Yeah, that's why I never wanted to have a second date with you, because of, like she wants to plan every single thing to a T. Like every bit of their date was actually like already planned ahead of time. Like she had a planned sheet that she's like, oh yeah, I wanna have this happen on our date and this happen on our date, and I want to end it with a kiss, and maybe like Owen was just like, how about a no? How about a like this is garbage because this is like the most like you want to basically have your like movie kind of date where like you want to think everything is going to go exactly the way you want and it's not. So anyways, so Owen is going with Claire to this exhibit, and again he's going to make fun of the pronunciation or the pronouncing of this dinosaur. So they go on to this exhibit and they're just like, where is it? Where is the dinosaur? And all of a sudden they are to see these like heavily scratches on this door, and Owen is assuming that maybe this dinosaur had gotten out of the exhibit. Maybe the dinosaur, I'm assuming it's a she, maybe this dinosaur had gone and climbed over this exhibit because maybe they didn't build the walls up high enough, because I think this is like a 50-foot dinosaur, a dinosaur that had eaten its genetic sibling, meaning that basically this dinosaur was to have another dinosaur like it, but it ate it. So Owen is assessing or assuming that the dinosaur had gotten out somehow, and Claire is freaking out because she's like, "Oh my god, there might be a dinosaur loose in this park." So, like, I need to figure out where it is because there's evidently a tracking device. So we have Owen and a bunch of construction guys. Like they open the door and they're just like, "Hey, we're gonna try to like, what the heck is all going on? This doesn't make any sense." And so Claire is calling Laurie and like asking him like, "Hey, like you can track where this dinosaur is. Where is it?" And so Laurie is to mention, "Yeah, the thing is still in the cage." Like it's still in lockup. And Claire's like, "So what now?" Like, no, like it's out. And Laurie's like, "No, it's still it's still in there. It's still in." So all of a sudden, like we see Owen and these construction guys going, "Oh my god," because they see this dinosaur and now they're having to freaking run from it, and they have to forcibly open this door so that way they can squeak past. But that also just unleashes the dinosaur that ends up crashing through this door and is just making its way through this door for a meal and eating these construction guys. And so Chris Pratt is ripping the gas line of this vehicle so that way he can pour it all over himself so he doesn't smell like a normal piece of meat to this thing, he smells like gasoline. So it all kind of blends in with this car. So we see this dinosaur eventually just trottle off, and so Rizani is going with Wu, or Dr. Wu, and kind of asking like what kind of mixture is in this dinosaur, because Dr. Wu, I guess, had a big secret of what this dinosaur was to be. And so Masrani wants to know exactly what this dinosaur is. Like, he wants to know exactly what they got their hands in on, because it seems like this dinosaur is a lot smarter than the others. It seems like this dinosaur is a lot different than the others. And so Masrani wants to know why. So Dr. Wu is to mention, like, well, it seems like we had to go and try and figure out how to mix a couple of animal DNA with this dinosaur DNA, so that way it can adapt to hot environments and like kind of adapt to a number of other things. But then while that is to happen, like, we start to realize that a lot of the things that this can do eventually can camouflage itself. Like, it can basically be like attached to any number of different kind of style of dinosaurs. Like, it's more than just a T-Rex. It has like a ton of other kind of things tied to it, to just kind of make it a number of different kind of dinosaurs. Like, so anyways, but there's that. So let's get into the early Chris Pratt stuff. So Owen is to go and train these raptors. He is to go and toss them all certain kind of foods, and kind of like do this little clicking thing, and kind of train them where to go, train them on how to move. And we have Hopkins, who is to come in here, of course. If you guys don't know Hopkins, a lot of people might know him as Wilson Fisk, or the Kingpin from Daredevil, or some people might know him from, I think, he did some like detective show. I don't know. IMDb it up. You'll know. You'll figure it out. So the spray tanned Hopkins. So he comes into the fray because I think around this time he was doing Daredevil also. So I was kind of surprised of him being in this movie. But then also, like, when you see cha-ching, cha-ching dollar signs, like, yeah, I'll go and I'll do Jurassic World, sure. Whenever you need me to show up, because I want to do this movie to get big fat checks. So Hopkins is seeing what Owens is doing, but here's the thing. Hopkins is thinking that anybody could take these raptors and be able to tell them what to do, but it doesn't work that way. Owens had mentioned that he had to imprint on them at a young age to be consistently with them, so that way he can consistently control them. To the point where they are to have a young guy come into the cage, and he is to accidentally fall into the cage with all the raptors. And so Owens is to jump in there and to try and like put his hands up, and he's trying to like stall these dinosaurs. He's trying to like hold them up and not attack this guy. And so Owen is telling this guy exactly what to do to try to get out of here. And so one of Owens's like secondhand man is to have is to open up this cage to let the guy who had fell in go back through this cage, and then Owen is going to roll and have the cage be locked behind him. And so Owen now has to tell this guy that fell into the cage, it's like, hey, like, you wonder why there was a job opening in this department? Never have your back to this cage, because eventually this kid, like, looks back and sees a raptor, like, kind of close to his face. And so he's like, ah, okay, all right. Like, maybe you should look for another career there, buddy. Maybe if you want to do something stupid and get killed for it, because it seems that through a lot of this, it seems like really a life or death job. Like Claire was to mention that there were some people that had already lost arms and quite possibly had died. But this is even before the stuff starts really popping off here, and a lot of people are probably gonna like sue these people afterwards if this was a real legitimate thing. Let me pause here for a reset for a second. All right. So the whole Hopkins thing that will come back into play later, but we'll get to that. So the Indominus Rex is getting loose, but actually all that it's doing is kind of just breaking into any of the other exhibits and just starting to just kind of maim or destroy a lot of these other dinosaurs just because he can. Not because he's hungry, or not because I think technically it's a she. Not because it's hungry. Just because it's for sport. So we have both Gray and we have Zach, who are to go into one of these hamster ball things that they make a joke about, and they are to just kind of easily be able to just drive this thing, and I guess it is to just kind of easily just roll on out. But eventually both Gray and Zach decide that there is a little gap in their road, so they just decide to just go off-road and just go into a exhibit where there are a bunch of dinosaurs already kind of having at it. Like there's like Triceratopses, and there are also quite a few Ankylosauruses, and so both Gray and Zach are having a good time. They're seeing a lot of these dinosaurs. They're having Jimmy Fallon kind of make jokes about stuff that could paralyze him, or otherwise, like he's talking about how strong the hamster wheel ball is, that you could shoot a firearm into it close range, and like it'll still be pretty durable, but not durable for everything, because eventually somebody's going to come on in and disprove that. So it seems like these two kids are having a good time, and so all of a sudden there's this notice that, hey, like, we're gonna close all these rides. We're gonna justifiably have everybody just kind of like sit tight at a certain section of this park, but we're gonna try to close this whole thing off, so that way, like, because they naturally assume that there's only going to be, like, one dinosaur that is going to get out, but eventually it starts getting more and more dinosaurs are just getting out, and they're wreaking havoc on this park, because I guess after one dinosaur gets out, pretty much all of them start to get out, because mistakes were made. So, like, I don't get kind of how, like, the pterodons, or probably the P is silent, pterodons, the kind of the triceratops looking dinosaurs. I don't know how exactly they get out, but evidently they get out, and I don't quite understand how they got out, but there was not a scene of that. I guess they just got lazy at that part. They're just like, hey man, we really need to see some winged dinosaurs. Just grab some people, but we're getting really too far away from us on that one. We're kind of skipping the gun on that one. So we have the Indominus making its way to both Gray and Zach. Claire is consistently like calling the babysitter, the British babysitter that she used to joke about, like, oh yeah, they're British. She's a British person, so she should probably be like the best babysitter ever. Because eventually Claire is to call Karen, and because when Karen calls Zach, Zach mentions, yeah, like Claire isn't even here with us. Like if anything, like she has one of her like assistants with us. So Karen eventually calls Claire and is like, hey, like why aren't you with my boys? Like I wanted them to have like a real family experience, and you're not even with them. And Claire is like, well, yeah, but I have my assistant with them. And Claire is like, because Claire and her husband are going through a divorce, and eventually, Zach is, or Gray is to mention to Zach that he knows that his parents are having a divorce because he had found letters of their divorce and stuff like that, and like kind of Zach is like, you know what, like if anything, this will be fine. We'll just have 2 Christmases and 2 Thanksgivings. We'll have 2 of everything. And like Zach is also like, dude, and plus also like I'm getting old enough so I'm gonna be out of here. And like that's all that Zach is thinking about. Like the entire time, all Zach cares about is like girls, or which I don't blame him, but like Zach already technically has a girlfriend at home, but instead he's looking at any number of any other girls. You would think that if he already has a girlfriend, that I guess he's just throwing away, because he's like, like, you know what, I can get any girl that I want, I guess. But yeah, so Gray is to figure out that his parents are getting a divorce, and Zach is just like, well, okay, whatever. Like, we'll just have to deal with it. Like, it's out of our control. So, anyways, I think that's the main reason why Karen wants like one last family like outing, while like Karen is also working on this divorce with her husband. So, pushing on. So, Claire is to call the assistant, and the assistant had lost both Zach and Gray. So now Claire is calling Zach, and Zach it's kind of in and out. And so Claire tries to recall him, but they're in kind of a midst of a Indominus Rex at that point, so I don't think he's going to be calling her back anytime soon. So So Claire is to eventually like spot where the hamster ball is, because Laurie said that every one of the hamster ball-esh like things were accounted for, and then they spot one that is really out of route. So Claire is to call Zach and Gray and get no answer, because really they're fighting off an Indominus Rex that is to appear out of nowhere, and like start to take down some of the other dinosaurs, but then eventually go after both Zach and Gray. They like this dinosaur is to basically like show its eye in front of them, because Zach wasn't paying attention, but Gray was pointing out, like, hey, look. Like, yeah, this thing is going to eat us, because, yeah, this dinosaur easily can break through anything. So, and I think that's a huge mistake that these people made. So, the Indominus Rex is going and poking its nail, like its finger, through one of the holes of this hamster ball. And so eventually we just have this dinosaur who is putting its mouth on over the hamster ball and just like smashing it into the ground. And so Zach decides to unhook both him and Gray to fall out of this thing and then make a run for it. And they decide to jump into this this waterfall and go into this water. And I'm like, dude, is there gonna be like a point where like right after this they're gonna think, man, was like we're safe now, I guess, and then immediately there's gonna be some other dinosaur right in their way, and they're gonna have to run like heck from that. But no, like these kids are just having a fun time, and they can just avoid everything, and like everything is fun for them. They're not consistently like dinosaurs are at their tail and they're running like heck all throughout this movie. No, they're bizarrely having a good time. They're just having a fun ride. Which I'm like any other movie, like, nah, I wouldn't have it happen like that. I would just be like, no, like, these kids have to be terrified beyond belief. And they're gonna be like, man, this sucks. Like, I almost died like 12 times throughout this movie. Because the other kids did. But anyways, moving on. So, Claire is to take Owen to try to retrieve these kids. They track down where the hamster ball is, and eventually they, of course, Claire does the stupid thing by shouting out the kids' names. And Owen is like, do not shout. Like, do you realize where you are? Like, they do, of course, the, like, Jurassic Park 3 thing, where, like, Sam Neill is telling the mother and the father, like, shut up! Like, don't be yelling the kid's name. I don't care if he quite possibly might be close by. That is the stupidest thing, to start yelling this kid's name, because I don't know how many dinosaurs are here willing to just epper breath and just be like, I'm just waiting for somebody to just say something so I can just nibble on them. And you're the dumb, stupid person that is going to be that one person that's like, yeah, could I yell and scream for anyone to come and eat me? That's not an actual other person? Because cannibalism. So, cannibalism, folks, it's a horrible thing. So Owen and Claire are to track these things down like a tracker would do. Like pretty much Aragon did in the Two Tower movie, where he had to like track down the hobbits. Is that the Two Tower one? I don't know. It's been a while since I've paid attention to a Lord of the Rings movie, much less watched fully on. I think I kind of saw bits and pieces of one. Because it's a lot of walking in those movies. Just like in the Jurassic Park movies. It's a lot of walking. Oh, look, there's a dinosaur. But then a lot of walking. So Owen and Claire are trying to track down where Zach and Gray are holding their hats. But Zach and Gray are to eventually find the original Jurassic Park like place, because a lot of the spots here and there seem familiar. They find the Jurassic Park banner. They eventually find like some Jurassic Park Jeeps and like cool other stuff. Like we had Laurie, who was to find a Jurassic Park shirt on eBay for $150, because if anything, there are some other ones that cost like $300 and something. I'm like, I'm sorry, but I would not like. I've spent my money on stupid things, but never just like a t-shirt that like seems just kind of really worn and just doesn't look exactly like anyways. But they're just going and trying to like merchandise this movie, just like, hey, Laurie is wearing this shirt, so why aren't you? I think they were trying to heavily merchandise this movie, and it just became like, oh yeah, like they're definitely gonna merchandise this film. So anyways, so both Gray and Zach are to eventually find these Jurassic Park Jeeps, and they are to eventually get them working. And so Zach is to ask Gray, like you failed the driving test of like getting your license, right? And Zach is like, well, yeah, I only failed the driving part. So Zach and Gray, it's getting to the tail end of my day. So Zach and Gray are driving onto this Jeep and going and finding two security guards to let them out of this exhibit, because they're like, "Hey man, help us!" So, so both Gray and Claire track Zach and where Zach and Gray had went, and so they immediately go in there and they kind of like fiddle around with some of the Jurassic Park stuff. They don't try anything on. They don't go, "Hey man, like I just found like this cool like thing that I'm gonna keep on forever." But anyways, so how is it that no one like put on the goggle thing and like tried that? Like they have it to where they like touch it, but like they don't put it on and use it. That would have been cool, but whatever. Anyways, I kind of skipped about the whole like hologram dinosaur thing that shows in the very beginning of this movie. That does look kind of cool, but anyways. So Claire and Owen are to go and try to figure out how they like got back these like Jeeps to work, these Jurassic Park Jeeps to work, because they've been like out of service for a very long time. And so while they're just trying to like figure out what's going on with these cars, all of a sudden the Indominus is to make its way into poking its head to try to sniff or whiff out either Claire because of probably her perfume or cologne or whatever, and Owen with his heavily gas musk smell. And Indominus is like, hey, like, are you trying to find those kids? So am I. Indominus Rex is like, hey, I'm trying to find those kids too. How about we team up and we find them together? Also, you can team up by falling into my mouth and have me a decent meal. So Indominus goes right into the opening spot to try and see if he can find both Claire or I said he, and I don't mean that. The dinosaur makes head go into hole to see if it can spot Owen and Claire, and the dinosaur exits out of said hole. Owen grabs its gun because he's assuming that the dinosaur is just going to come right on back, and of course he does. Or she does. The dinosaur, whichever. I'm assuming that it's like Godzilla, where it like reproduces like without a partner, like it can eventually make an egg. That's my approach. So this is kind of like a one gender in all kind of dinosaur to me. That's why I say he or she or it or whatever, because that's what I'm naturally assuming. Because if they only made one dinosaur, then obviously anyways, because I think, and also in the original Jurassic Park movie, I think every dinosaur was a she, right? Because like they didn't want a male dinosaur. Moving on. Like in the very beginning of this movie, we have like a dinosaur cracking through an egg, and just like the original movie. So pushing on. So So Claire and Owens now have to run for their lives from this dinosaur that is kind of breaking through this whole original Jurassic Park place. And eventually, both Owens and Claire make their way through, and I think eventually, like, they do catch up with both Gray and Zach, but it just ends up being that they finally find one another when eventually, like, the whole, like the Triceratops start, like, attacking everybody. Uh, yeah, because I'm trying to think if that happened anytime sooner. No, I think that's, yeah, okay. So, because I'm thinking if they, like, met any other time earlier, but I don't think they did. So, Zach and Gray make their way into the amusement park, and a lot of things are starting to open up. A lot of dinosaurs are making their way through this spot. And eventually we have these dinosaurs that look like Triceratops, but I said the actual name of them. These Triceratops looking dinosaurs start attacking everyone in the park. And so Owen and Claire are to make their way back with all the people to just kind of naturally assume that both Gray and Zach had to make their way back into a safe spot at some point. So all the Triceratops looking dinosaurs are kind of grabbing at people. And so Owen, with a number of other guys, are kind of tranquilize darting a lot of these dinosaurs. And we have at some point that one of these dinosaurs go and drop onto Owen and try to, like, grab at him, and so he's, like, wrestling with it. And so Claire is to go and, like, heavily tranquilize one of these dinosaurs. It's like, wow, you would have thought the girl that, like, would have done anything to try to save any of these dinosaurs. Why is she heavily shooting one down? That's kind of weird. But both Gray and Zach are to see their aunt do this. And so all of a sudden Claire is to see both Zach and Gray, and she's like, oh my god, you guys are both safe. And so, like, Claire, like, latches onto them for, like, the rest of the movie. And at one point she's to mention, like, yeah, like, I'm going to stick to you guys for the rest of your lives. And so both Zach and Gray are like, well, yeah, that's great, but can we, like, stay with him? Can we stay with Chris Pratt? So it seems like he knows what he's doing. And so eventually, like, they just continue to see all of these, like, Triceratops-esque, like, dinosaurs making their way through all of these people. So Owen, Claire, Zach, and Gray all make a run for this car, and they start to go backwards, because eventually there is also a threat of almost any number of dinosaurs going and attacking people. But anyways, so they back up this car, and then they, like, go into a spot where there is, like, no real, like, dinosaurs attacking them. And so Hoskins is seeing how dangerous this is all becoming. Like, he is going on and watching as this park is basically, like, tearing itself apart. Both Gray and Zach were to see what was to happen to their aunt's assistant, where she was just taken by these, like, Triceratops-esque, like, or maybe I'm saying this wrong. Triceratops? Is Triceratops the one with the horns? So I might have been saying that wrong the whole time. Oh, pterodactyl. Pterodactyl, not Triceratops. Pterodactyl. Good God. Because Triceratops is three horns. It's almost like a rhinoceros kind of dinosaur. Pterodactyl is the one with the wings. Good God. This is at the real tail end of my day, so I made a blunder there, so I apologize. Whew. Alright. So, Pterodactyl. I corrected myself, but YouTube comments will be what they will, and that's perfectly fine. So there was a pterodactyl, changing what I had said, collecting Claire's assistant, and like just kind of like taking her over to the giant fish dinosaur, and he grabs onto both the pterodactyl looking dinosaur and Claire's assistant and just eats her. And I'm like, yeah, like that's horrible because this woman is attractive, but it serves her right for not really paying attention to these kids, letting them wander off. And so then she had to go and search after them, which caused her to pretty much be stupid and pretty much just, die. That's her fault. So that's all of her fault. If she would have been paying attention to the kids instead of her bachelor party, maybe like she would have been alive during the rest of this movie. Probably not anyways, because it is what it is. So pushing on. So Claire and Owen are to have Zach and Gray. Where's the smooth transition here? Because Hopkins is taking over, and he is gonna have his men all come in and desperately want the Raptors to try and take out the Indominus Rex. So Hopkins is thinking that he can easily have these Raptors go after it, so that way he can eventually train these Raptors for eventual military use, that they can easily just take these Raptors and just have anybody just kind of like command and train them. It doesn't work that way. So we have a bunch of people that are in certain sections just kind of waiting it out. A lot of people are probably injured. So the next maneuver is to try to contain all of the dinosaurs and try to like keep them try to keep them at bay, or try to so Hopkins is getting the Raptors ready, and Owens' friend is like trying to call him saying like, hey, we have a situation here, but eventually Owen gets to realize what is going on, and so he is to go to Hopkins, punch him in the face. Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, if anything, these are my Raptors, not yours. And so, if anything, if anything, they will do what I want them to do. And so, if we're going to have them go out there to stop this thing, like, you need to have me go with these guys. And so that's what ends up happening. So Claire and Zach and Owen are to eventually like go with them, but eventually like Claire and Zach and Owen are kind of keeping their distance. They're in this like vehicle that looks like an ambulance. So Owen is to go out there and like have his motorcycle and have all these Raptors go out there, and a lot of these military guys are to go out there. So the folly part of this plan is to eventually have these military guys just start popping off bullets to kill this thing, and that's not the right approach to this, because Owen is to let these Raptors go out there and make it to the Indominus Rex. And so, like, Owen and all the military guys are just kind of watching as this interaction is to happen. between the Indominus Rex and the Raptors, and Owen is to realize, oh my god, there's a problem here, because it seems that this Indominus Rex also has part raptor in it. So, like, this dinosaur probably has every freaking kind of dinosaur within it somehow to be this unique dinosaur. And when Dr. Wu is to talk to Mizrani, it's like Dr. Wu is like, dude, all you wanted was something cool. All you wanted something with more teeth. And so, really, like, that's what I gave you. Like, the most dangerous dinosaur, yes, but, like, it looks cooler. Like, it looks dangerous. It looks whatever. Like, if anything, like, you should have realized how eventually, like, enough should have been enough, but you kept asking for more. You kept asking for better. You kept asking for scarier, and this is what you got. So, really, I think Dr. Wu is kind of the villain of this movie, but I honestly think no. Like, I think he just did what he was told. Like, there's people that are paying him big fat checks, and so, like, he can get a helicopter out of here and have no qualms about anything. And that's eventually when, like, Hopkins is kind of seeing how things are just kind of derailing, how easily and quickly he starts taking every single DNA sample and every single, like, Dr. Wu and every piece of his stuff with him to just be like, oh, okay, well, we're going to do another park and we're going to ship this out somewhere because there's a lot of military applications that can go along with what we're trying to do here. And it seems like parts and bits and pieces of this was a success, but it won't be a success here. But so Owen's back in the spot with the Indomitable Rex and Raptors. So all of a sudden the Raptors turn on Owen and start eating a bunch of military guys, to where eventually Owen and his friend are to try to, like, survive as long as possible. But then eventually we do have Owen who tries to wrangle some of the Raptors, and it does work a little bit, but, like, it takes, like, longer in this film to get Owen back on track with all these Raptors to kind of use them to like, trigger back onto this Indomitable Rex. But it'll take towards the end of this movie to do all that. So Owen is to eventually, like, get on his motorcycle and get the heck out of here. And eventually he is to run into Claire with the two boys in this ambulance. And it seems like the boys accidentally have their back of their ambulance opened. And all of a sudden, like, Raptors are trying to jump into the back of this ambulance. And the boys are trying to use, like, kind of like taser weapons and stuff like that to get these dinosaurs away from these doors. And then eventually Owen is to kind of, like, drive right behind this ambulance to try to get them the heck out of there, because they need to go into like, actual, like, exclosures or, like, shelters or something to hide away from these dinosaurs. So both Zach and Gray are to go into one of the convenience stores, and Claire is going to stay there for a while, but then eventually she has a plan. But she wants to see how it's going with Owen when Owen is to train back up these Raptors to go after the Indominus Rex. Because eventually the Raptors are to re-show back up, but this time around Owen can now, like, get them back on his side, and then the Raptors are now fighting off the Indominus Rex. And so Zach is, or Gray is to eventually figure out that, like, yeah, like, the Raptors aren't going to be able to beat Indominus Rex because they don't have big enough teeth. And so we need something that has big enough teeth to go against this thing. And so everybody's evacuating at this time. Uh, I think Vivian, who is the kind of the girl in this command center. She is leaving, and Laurie is going to like kiss her. Vivian is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Like I have a boyfriend," and Laurie's like, "Well, I didn't think you had one," and she's like, "Yeah, I have one." And so Laurie just like is like, "Well, I'll just hug you then, and then you'll just leave." So Laurie just wants to be the guy that just is staying there last till all the lights go out and everything like that, and he'll be the last to leave. So luckily for that, because Claire calls on Laurie to open the gate for the T Rex, and Claire goes and uses a flare to get T Rex to follow her, and luckily, I guess she can run fast enough in whatever shoes she's wearing. So Claire goes and runs to get the T Rex to go after the Adominus Rex. She tosses the flare onto the Adominus Rex, and so now we have a fight out between the Adominus Rex and the T Rex. But it also seems like they're like it seems like the T Rex is mostly losing, but then eventually like some of the raptors start kind of popping into fray because the Adonis Rex starts to kill some of them off, but then eventually they just keep popping in, and so eventually with the Raptors teaming up with T Rex, and like there's one time where it looks really cool where the Raptor is like on top of the T Rex, like trying to fight off the Indominus Rex, and it kind of looks cool. I thought that little maneuver was kind of cool, but anyways, uh, and so immediately we have like the T Rex smashing through this skeleton, and then of course he has to do his Jurassic Park pose, and then so the T Rex is to eventually take down the Adominus Rex, and like everything is to be all cool and all whatever, and so Claire has to regroup with Zach and Gray, and eventually they have to start running through a bunch of these convenient stores with Owen, because eventually, like, these dinosaurs keep crashing through all these stores, so it forces them to just have to keep like running through all these stores, trying to find shelter and be protected, but also like trying to run away from all of this. But so eventually the T Rex is to win, and I guess they can be able to put the T Rex back in its place. And then so after that, like both Gray and Zach are to be brought back to where all the other civilians are from this park, and their parents are both to arrive to hug both of them, and uh, and Claire is asking Owens, well, hey, what should we do next? And Owens is like, well, like I think we should like stay together for like survival purposes. And so, because Owen and Claire like kissed when Claire was to save Owen from that one from that one dinosaur, and so towards the end there they kiss and then they just kind of walk off, and that's like the way the movie just kind of ends. So with that said, there might have been some stuff here and there that I probably had to rush or condense, because this is like a 2 hour long movie, and plus really if there's anything that I missed, that at the end of the day you could say you could go and rewatch this movie and eventually see. But I did kind of condense a lot of stuff in this movie for a good reason. There's a lot of sciencey stuff that I try to avoid, and plus also there's just some beats and stuff like here that I just had to just condense. So I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.